Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie, missing day 60. This, as we learned, the FBI tonight trying to reverse engineer what could be two legitimate ransom notes. This amid reports that Mrs. Guthrie's home was found immaculate when her daughter Annie came rushing in. What, if anything, does that mean to CSI, crime scene investigators? Trust me, it means a lot. And tonight, did a dog named Jolene foil the kidnappers' original plan? Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
Hey, everybody, good to have you. Welcome back. We are now at day 60 in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, and this case is not only still unresolved, it is becoming more complex with every new piece of information that surfaces. And when a case reaches this point, 2 months in, you start to see a shift. Early urgency turns into long-term investigation. The quick answers become layered analysis. And the emotional weight, it only gets heavier. Because here's the reality. 60 days without answers is not just a number. It represents 60 days of uncertainty for the family, 60 days of unanswered questions for investigators, and 60 days where every small detail starts to matter even more than it did at the beginning. And right now, there are several developments that are reshaping how this case is being understood. One of the most significant involves ransom notes. The FBI is actively analyzing multiple notes that have surfaced in connection to this case. And what makes this particularly important is that investigators believe at least 2 of those notes may be legitimate. Not random hoaxes, not unrelated messages, but potentially connected to whoever is responsible. Now, when the FBI examines something like this, they're not just reading the words, they're analyzing behavior, linguistic patterns,
tone,
structure, the way sentences are formed. Even small details like spelling, punctuation, and phrasing can reveal patterns that point to a specific type of individual or even help link multiple communications to the same source. So when they say these notes may be legitimate, that suggests there is something consistent, something identifiable, something that stands out enough to warrant serious attention. But at the same time, there's still caution. Because until those notes can be definitively tied to a suspect, they remain pieces of a larger puzzle, not conclusions on their own. Now, while that's happening on the analytical side, another detail from the crime scene itself is raising serious questions. The interior of Nancy's home has been described as immaculate,
clean,
undisturbed, no obvious signs of struggle inside. And on the surface, that might sound like nothing happened there. But in reality, it creates a contradiction that investigators are trying to understand. Because just outside that same home, there are clear indicators that something did happen. There was blood found on the doorstep. A door was left propped open. And one of the security cameras had been removed or dislodged. So you have 2 very different pictures. Inside, order, calm, no visible disruption. Outside, evidence suggesting something sudden, possibly violent, and certainly out of the ordinary. And when those 2 things don't match, it forces investigators to ask deeper questions. Did whatever happened occur primarily outside the home? Was Nancy lured or forced out rather than taken from inside? Or was the scene inside intentionally left untouched or even cleaned? These are the kinds of questions that don't have immediate answers, but they shape the direction of the investigation. Another critical factor that continues to stand out is Nancy's physical condition. Her family has been very clear. She had serious mobility issues and was in pain. This is not someone who could easily walk long distances, especially not in the middle of the night, and certainly not without assistance. So the idea that she simply wandered off becomes extremely unlikely. In fact, for many following the case, that possibility has been effectively ruled out. Which brings the focus back to the evidence suggesting foul play. Now, there's another element in this case that might seem small at first, but could actually be very important. A neighbor's dog. The dog's name is Jolene. Around 1:40 a.m. on the night Nancy disappeared, Jolene reportedly began acting in an unusual way. Alert, agitated, reacting to something outside the normal environment. And here's where it gets interesting. Dogs don't react like that without a reason. They pick up on movement, sound, scent, things that humans might not immediately notice. So when a dog behaves differently at a very specific time, it can sometimes point to activity that aligns with a timeline. Now, investigators and observers are looking at that moment, around 1:40 a.m., as potentially significant. Could that have been when the suspect was moving through the area? Could that have been when something went wrong? Because there's another detail connected to this that makes it even more compelling. That same dog reportedly showed similar unusual behavior weeks earlier, on January 11th. And that raises a very different kind of question. Was someone in the area before the night of the disappearance? Was there a period of scouting, of observation, of planning? Because if the same type of reaction happened weeks apart, it suggests a pattern, not a one-time event. And if there was planning involved, that changes the entire nature of the case. It suggests this was not random. It suggests intent. Now, looking back at the physical evidence, there's also an indication that whatever plan may have existed might not have gone exactly as expected. The back door being propped open suggests a possible escape route, something prepared in advance. A way in and a way out. But other evidence suggests that the suspect may not have used that route. Instead, there are indications that the exit may have happened through the front. And if that's true, it raises a very specific possibility that something disrupted the original plan. Maybe it was timing. Maybe it was noise. Maybe it was something as simple as that dog reacting and creating a moment of pressure or urgency. But when plans change mid-action, mistakes can happen. And in investigations like this, those moments of disruption can sometimes leave behind the most valuable evidence. Which brings us to another concern that has been raised. Was the scene preserved quickly enough to capture all of that potential evidence? Because in the earliest stages of any case, time is critical, not just for finding a person, but for protecting the integrity of the environment where the incident occurred. Footprints, trace DNA, fibers, movement patterns. All of those can be affected by time, by weather, by human activity. And if there was any delay in securing the scene fully, there is always the risk that something important may have been lost or compromised. Now, that doesn't mean evidence wasn't collected. It means the question is whether everything that could have been collected was. And that's something that only becomes clearer over time as forensic analysis continues. Despite all of these complexities, one thing remains very clear. The investigation is still active. Authorities are continuing to follow leads, analyze evidence, and process new information as it comes in. And there is now a $1.2 million reward being offered. That's a significant amount, and it reflects both the seriousness of the case and the urgency to find answers. Because rewards like that are not just about money, they're about generating information, encouraging someone who knows something to come forward, breaking through silence that might otherwise remain in place. At this point, every possibility is still on the table. Every piece of evidence is being re-examined. Every timeline detail is being scrutinized. And yet, the central mystery remains. What exactly happened that night? Who was responsible? And where is Nancy Guthrie? Those questions have not changed. But what has changed is the level of detail, the depth of analysis, and the growing sense that this case is far more complex than it may have first appeared. As always, we will continue to follow this closely. Because in cases like this, answers don't always come quickly, but they can come. And when they do, they often come from the details that seemed small at the time. Thank you for being here, for staying engaged, and for taking the time to understand the full picture. Stay aware, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next update.